Alright guys, we are back in the manual Supra, and I was immediately reminded as to how small this car actually is compared to everything else I've been driving for the past year or two since I've had my Supra. But this is going to be the second day that I've been driving on the new Clutchmaster's FX1000 clutch. We have to put about 300 miles on this clutch and break it in before we can really turn it up, start data logging, street logging, and getting it on the dyno to improve the power numbers and torque numbers in the car as it sits. So right now the car is currently on an E-blend tune. It's making about 500 and some horsepower, about 600 torque to the wheels, and it's really, really nice. This clutch, immediate impressions after driving it a day. There's a few things that you have to be cognizant of when you are going to an aftermarket clutch like this. It's going to be a heavier clutch all around. It's nothing too crazy. It's nothing you can't handle. It's not like your foot's gonna go numb after driving for a while, but it is a heavier clutch. And for some people, you know, that might be a deal breaker. But that is sort of the trade-off when you are going with a car that is going to be making, you know, significantly more power, and you need a clutch that can handle that power and torque. That's sort of the trade-off. It's going to be a heavier clutch no matter what you do. This car drives very good. Very good. Now, so me personally, I prefer a clutch that is a little bit heavier. Some people might not like that. I tend to find that a lot of BMW clutches from factory are extremely, extremely soft. And they do that to make it a little bit easier for the consumer to drive. Not everyday drivers that buy BMWs, manual BMWs, are going to want to have, or Supras, are going to want to have a super heavy clutch in the car. This is by no means a super heavy clutch, but I would say it's, you know, somewhere in the middle, nearing the heavier side. But again, not a deal breaker, not terrible. I have no problems driving it. The engagement point is a little bit further out, so you have a bit more room to sort of feather the clutch when you're starting the car off in first or reverse or whatever. But it's a very easy clutch to manage. It's not like it's a full-on race spec clutch that's gonna grab super firm. It's nothing like that. It's a really easy and very streetable clutch that's just gonna allow you to run the car with more power and more torque, which is pretty much perfect for this setup. I actually really enjoy this clutch in this car. In general, I actually think that the transmissions and the way that they set up the gearbox and the shifting and everything about the manual MK5 Supra transmission feeling is really good. I've always liked it right from the jump. It felt a lot different than the BMW setups. You just kind of have to experience one for yourself because they do feel really nice, and I think they drive a lot differently compared to the BMW, let's say 340 or F8X transmissions and gearboxes. Now, I think what Toyota did is they based this transmission off of an earlier transmission, like let's say the 340. However, it is very different. I think that this power range for this car right now is a really good setup, being in, you know, the mid 5s and 600 torque area. This is going to be a power level that you're going to be competing with a ton of other cars if you like to just do some roll racing or just mess around on the weekends. But at the same time, you know, some people really want to turn these cars up and really just push the potential in them, and you know, this is the clutch setup that you're going to want if you want to be able to do that. Is this car going to be making 1,000 wheel torque? No. But if the owner decides to turn it up to 8.9, 7.89 and builds the motor or whatever, he's gonna have no problem just keeping this clutch in here. So that's kind of like the benefit of it. And like I said before, it doesn't really take away from having like a daily drivable manual car. So it feels great. It's really the best of both worlds. So is it necessary to upgrade the clutch in your Supra, in your manual Supra, if you are going to go for 600 wheel horsepower and about 600 torque, or a little more than 600 torque? I think the answer is yes. I think inevitably at some point that clutch is going to start slipping. You know, with the automatic transmission in the Supras, they can make it to about 700, a little under 700 wheel horsepower until it just is time to build the trans. You're going to hear slipping on the drag strip when you're racing. It's going to happen with these cars when you start hitting those higher horsepower and higher torque numbers. So I think it just makes sense. But again, this really comes down to what the owner is looking to gain out of the car, you know, what they are trying to do with the car. What is the purpose of building that car for that owner? I think this clutch will also break in a little bit. You know, it is a fresh clutch. It literally has 77 miles on the clutch. I think it will break in a little bit more, even become a bit more relaxed. In comparison to the DKM twin disc clutch, which is also a 1,000 wheel torque rated clutch in my 135, I would say that this clutch is probably a bit more on the firm side. The clutch that I have in my 135 is just a bit softer. I mean, it has a little bit different of an engagement point too, but you also have to understand that I still have the slave cylinder in that car. It's an entirely different setup, but it's not too far off. They both are a bit grabby. They both are a bit heavier, but like I said before, that just sort of comes with the territory. I also think it's fair to note that, you know, the majority of people that are buying the manual Supras are probably not going to be trying to turn them up too high. I think the intention for the manual Supra was more so just to give that driver feel back to the Supra, that people like, you know, myself, that we were asking for it, and it feels really good, you know. But if you want like a high horsepower Supra, or you want a really fast Supra, I think inevitably you're gonna go for the automatic. It's just gonna be faster in the long run. Kind of makes more sense if you're trying to build that type of car. But with that being said, it's really cool having a fast manual car. So I totally get why some people would want to upgrade the clutch in these cars and go for more power and really push them to their limits. So what is it like having a Supra back in the garage for a week while I break in this clutch? Man, I will tell you something. I love the Supras, but they are just way too small for me. I don't know how I did it for as long as I did it. Being in the 1 Series and having like the M3, they are so much larger, so much more comfortable, so much more roomy. There's so many blind spots in this car. It's so difficult for me to get in and out of it. And I know that that sounds like I'm just complaining because, you know, it's a very tight car and I'm a bigger dude, whatever. An everyday thing, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it for an everyday thing. And that's just me. That's just my opinion. You know, it's, if I wanted to go with this platform, even though it is a little bit heavier, I would just go for the new M240. Personally, that would be my pick of the litter. But again, if you're trying to build like the fastest car, you know, the Supra is going to be a lot lighter. However, it is rear-wheel drive. M240 is all-wheel drive, so you kind of have that advantage with the hit off the line. Also, they do not make the new M240 in manual, but I don't really think that matters. I think that in a lot of those newer BMWs, the automatic just works better, you know? Even when it comes down to like the G8Xs, like I personally would not buy a G8X in a manual. I just wouldn't. And I love manual. I'm like a manual guy to the core. But I think that those newer cars are just better suited with an automatic. They just make more sense. The manual feels like a major afterthought in a lot of the newer cars. So the other thing I want to talk about is this car is also on the KW coilovers, just like my Supra was. And after driving the E92 M3 I daily drive that car now, driving for so long, and it, you know, I'm on the Öhlins road and track coilovers, Milway camber plates. Basically all of the arms are upgraded, all of the bushings have been refreshed. That car is so good. Like the way that that car handles is incredible. And I've realized after getting back in one of these cars do not handle well. Tons of body roll, super floaty, understeer. I mean, it could also be alignment specs, but man, it really makes me appreciate my older E92 M3. And also when it comes down to the steering, these newer BMWs, this steering is killing me, man. It's like the softest, easiest steering, and I'm so used to that heavy hydraulic steering that you just feel the car better. You get such a better like road response from the car. This new electronic steering is not it, bro. And that's just me. That's just my opinion. I know that some people are just gonna come at me for that, but personally, I've just really fallen in love with having that older hydraulic steering that has that great feedback. Drives nice though, it's smooth. It's a very smooth car. The E92 is not a smooth car. I mean, it's not bad by any means. If I can daily it, it's smooth enough. But in comparison to a car like this and these newer cars, it doesn't touch it. I actually just put our 888Rs on the E92 M3, so things are even gonna get more rough on that car. but I like it. It's just a fun sports car that I commute around in, and it just always feels like I'm on a track when I drive that car. I just love it. Anyways, I have a bunch more miles that I have to do on this car, approximately 220 more miles that I have to put on this clutch, and then we're gonna do an update video for you guys. We're gonna put this car back on the dyno, turn her up, and see what we're pushing for more power. Obviously, we're not gonna go too crazy, but we can definitely squeeze a little bit more out of her, and I think that the owner is gonna be super, super happy. Big shout out to Matt for letting us make these videos on his car and installing these parts and kind of going through the process of, you know, what needs to be upgraded if you want to make more power on the MK5 Supra. And also big shout out to the guys over at Clutchmaster for sending out the clutch. We absolutely love it. Thank you guys for watching the videos, and make sure you subscribe to the CES Motorsport channel as well. We have a lot of new content coming out there, but I appreciate you guys so much. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.